Hello, welcome back. Christopher Taylor, Sovereign Harmony. Thanks for joining me. So again, I'm back earlier than expected. Last time I did a video was August 1st. It's August 30th, Sunday right now. I just want to do a little preview for September. September is going to be a pretty intense month, astrologically speaking. Plus there is this thing, if you Google false flag September 23rd, 2015, you're going to find all kinds of stuff about that. And so I want to address that as well. Don't worry about it. We'll get to it. But anyway, so again, welcome back. And here we are, again, Sunday, August 30th. And Venus has about 1 week left of its retrograde. So if you recall from the last videos, Venus went retrograde around the end of July, right at the 0 point of Virgo. We're going to talk a lot about Virgo again here, just to reiterate what I've talked about before. And it went retrograde back into Leo. It's in Leo now, just about to connect with Mars. And this is actually going to happen tomorrow, August 31st on Monday. So I want to talk about that cycle as well, the Venus-Mars cycle. They actually conjuncted each other back in the sign of Aries in late February. And they're here again conjuncting each other in Leo here tomorrow on the 31st. And then they'll make a final conjunction in early November, around November 2nd, I believe, something like that. And that's going to be in Virgo. So again, Virgo comes up. So lots of shifting into Virgo energy. That's going to be a big theme here in September. This is kind of like the month where it starts to happen. Between September and November, we really get this bridge to more Virgo energy. And if you've listened to my previous videos about Regulus in Virgo, so Regulus is this fixed star, has to do with power structures. When it was in Leo, and it's been in Leo for about 2,000 years, from around the start of the Roman Empire, a little before that actually, and then it ended here around 2012. And the 29th degree of Leo was extra intense with that kind of paradigm of power, and that was the late 1930s, right around to 2012. That was when Regulus was in the final degree of Leo, and when we saw that power paradigm of Leo really enforce itself. And the Leo paradigm is this real, might is right, force, masculine kind of dominance kind of way of being, in things like sports and celebrities in general, that kind of exploded here in between the late 1930s right after 2012. I mean, television essentially happened during that time. Hitler, the rise of Hitler, the nastiness that came with Hitler happened right at the beginning of that. And we dropped an atom bomb. We created the nuclear technology during that time, etc. So there's a real sense of super hyper masculinity that's when Regulus is in Leo in general, but when it's in 29th degree, it was extra intense. And so a lot of us, the last few generations, have lived our entire lives in this Regulus in Leo 29th degree energy, and the sense of the world is always getting worse is kind of in the back of people's minds, like, when is it going to get better? How can it get better? It only gets worse every generation, this kind of thing, and like the dangers out there. But the point being that this shift of Regulus into Virgo puts us in a very different energy, this power paradigm of more fairness, feminine principles, care for the earth, health, and common sense when it comes to health. So we can go back to ancient times and look at like ancient Chinese medicine, for example, where there was a lot of common sense when it came to health. It had a lot to do with balance, and balance is pretty simple, pretty common sense. And it's like the idea that foods and herbs and things either push you to one side of imbalance or the other. And if you're on this side, you need foods to pull you to this side. If you're on this side, you get pulled to this side, etc., etc. And to always remain in balance. And there's seasonal aspects to that kind of eating as well, if you're familiar with Ayurvedic medicine and Ayurvedic calendars as far as eating and nutrition goes. And so this Regulus in Virgo is going to really restructure the power, say, in the medical field, for example. Because with Regulus in Leo, the medical field, you would have seen, what we have now, where essentially we split every condition into its own subcategory, and we've also created a medicine, a very masculine way of approaching disease, for each individual body part and each individual thing. Like, for example, the cancer industry, it's divided into all the body parts, when in reality cancer is cancer. And that's something we're going to get into with Regulus and Virgo as time goes on here. We've got it for the next 2,000 years, so it'll already start happening here in the next several decades, but probably sooner than that. The idea that, when you treat cancer like you treat cancer, you don't treat pancreatic cancer different than breast cancer. They're essentially the same thing. And so we have to recognize that, and that recognize the simplicity in the idea that cancer is just it's just a presentation of imbalance and dis-ease in the body, the uneasiness that the body's going through, and we can get it back into balance, it will heal itself. And that's just one example. So the medical industry, what Regulus in Virgo will end up doing, transforming that power structure. Because right now you have to go through your doctor essentially in order to heal, and they're often going to prescribe you different drugs and medications and things to, again, in a very masculine way, punch your disease out. Punch its lights out, and that's not the way to handle disease. That just adds more dis-ease into the body in the first place, which is why many people that's why sick people tend to be sick people, because it's what's causing the sickness is never dealt with. And so that's, again, I don't want to get too much into that, but this idea that with Regulus and Virgo, the power structures are changing. We're going to see a much more feminine aspect to how we give our power, what we give our power to. So how money is spent is a reflection of what's powerful. With Regulus and Leo, especially the 29th degree, we all give our power away to celebrities and sports figures for their masculine attributes and their physical beauty and that kind of thing. Where are we going to start directing our money toward with Regulus and Virgo? And it kind of remains to be seen, but the idea being, what it'll be a reflection of what our priorities are and what we do find valuable in terms of empowerment. And I think things like healing, things like caring for the earth and our resources that we need to survive, becomes paramount. And I'm sorry, it's really hot out here. It's insane. I'm in San Diego. Been really hot the last few days. It's pretty uncomfortable. But trying to get a little bit of shade here. You can see got a little sun over here, a little shade over there. But anyway, so with this shift in general into Virgo energy, again, for the next 2,000 years, the power structure is structured in that Virgoan way. What we have here this summer is a lot of shifting into the Virgo as well. I already mentioned when Venus went retrograde in late July, it was at the 0 Virgo point, right on Regulus, in fact. Right with Regulus, it went retrograde. To me, that signifies this is really the beginning of transitioning into this new way. When we go back to the late 1960s, when Pluto and Uranus were conjunct in Virgo, that really was a starting point for the most recent time. Again, that happened there when they squared each other 2012 to 2015, which I've talked about in previous videos. That was kind of our transition into making decisions about, are we really going to now launch the world in this new way, this new caring kind of way, and so now that that's over, that ended in the spring of 2015. Now Venus goes retrograde on the Virgo, 0 degrees Virgo with Regulus, and it's signifying this shift, this new switch into the energy. And after that, so we're getting toward the end of this retrograde now with Venus, like I said, and as I mentioned before, Venus met with Mars in late February in Aries, and that really launched something. Whatever happened in late February as far as kind of a new creative impulse, we want to say, okay? So that creative impulse now, as we get into tomorrow, with the next conjunction here in Leo, there's a sense of what do we want to do about this? How do we want to show this creative impulse to others? How can we show this off? So it's like, we have an idea or something birthing within us in February. Here now it's about how do I kind of prove that it exists in a way. What can I do? What can I put out there? And when they conjunct again in early November, that'll be in Virgo. Okay, so this is again bridging this gap from Leo to Virgo in a lot of ways, because Leo is all about the showiness, and Virgo is about the practical use of that. Because by the time we get into early November, it's going to be how are we using that creative impulse that we have shown people now here in August, September? How are we using it by the time we get to early November? Okay, and so it's that using, the practicality, the usefulness of something. That's what Virgo is all about. And so that's getting back to Regulus in Virgo, the power structures. The idea that we would never let someone be in power that isn't using common sense and that isn't doing something practically. Right now our politicians are all about the showiness, and we basically hire people by voting them in to just be showy and sound good on camera and things like that. But now the idea being that we're going to be our sensibility is going to be shifting into hiring or voting people in that are going to do the job. Again, that's a very Virgoan quality, very common sense, very much, we're here to do this, let's do this, let's get it done. But we're also, like I said, right now shifting into this. So I imagine this Donald Trump thing, my prediction on that is it's going to kind of balloon and then kind of fade, because he's a reflection of that old Regulus and Leo energy to the hilt, to the extreme. It's all about the show, it's all about the presentation. It's very hyper masculine. And that is not what, that is not even, regardless of what the polls say, that isn't really what we want. I mean, I'm not going to get into the idea of, how the polls are done and things like that, but, obviously it's not always honest, let's put it that way, okay? And I think the real reflection of what we want and how we want to be led isn't reflected by that, but we're being made to believe that it is. We're being made to believe that that's how we are, okay? And the more we believe that that's how we are, the less we think of ourselves, and that allows people in power to have power over us. And I won't go too much deeper into that, but getting back to the astrology here. So with the Venus-Mars conjunctions that happen in February, again tomorrow, August 31st in Leo, and then again in early November, there is this kind of phase of impulse. I want to show it, and then how do I use it practically? And so, it could be the idea or the connection with someone that allows, like for example, in late February, I ran into someone that's a publisher of books, and I've been thinking about writing a book for a while, and that was the meeting there. Here I am as they're coming into conjunction again, and now I'm meeting people recently in the last week or so that are on the same wavelength as what I'm writing about, and I'm starting to also find myself really wanting to just sit down and start producing some things from it. And then maybe by early November, maybe there really is that practical aspect of actually delivering something on paper, And so that could be the the transition there for me in my personal life. But however that looks to you. So in addition to that going on, September is pretty busy. Like I said, here we come up. Just so tomorrow is Venus conjunct Mars just before September starts. Then on the 6th, next Sunday, Venus goes direct. So it will go direct in Leo. It'll take until about October 9th or 10th, something like that, before it re-enters Virgo, where it started its retrograde. So that'll be the end of the shadow period, okay? But until then, in between that time, in between September 6th and say October 10th, there's a lot going on. So while Venus is kind of moving through the zodiac in the same zone it's retrograded through here, right off the bat in mid-September, around September 12th, I believe it is, we're going to have a new moon eclipse. So it's a solar eclipse in Virgo. So here's Virgo again, right? So here's the birth of this new energy. So we have Regulus in Virgo since 2012, but nothing really kicking it in until, boom, you have this Venus retrograde right on Regulus in the early part of Virgo. And now right after it goes direct, within a week of that, boom, a solar eclipse, which is a very powerful new beginning, new moon, and a shift in Virgo. So we have this real Virgo theme. And even before this happened, Jupiter had entered Virgo, like I mentioned before in the previous video, back in early August. So Jupiter's been in Virgo, I think since August 11th, I believe. Yeah, so for a few weeks now, it's been in Virgo. And what just happened yesterday, we had a full moon with the sun in Virgo, moon in Pisces, and Jupiter in Virgo is going to be opposing Neptune in Pisces here coming up in mid-September. So immediately following that new moon in Virgo, we'll have Jupiter in Virgo, making a really important aspect to Neptune in Pisces, which takes us back to 2009 or so, which is when that cycle started, okay? And that was a cycle when Jupiter and Neptune were conjunct in 2009, mid to late 2009. That was when a lot of us were kind of dreaming big. We were really thinking about what we can do in the world, and really dreaming and believing. That's a real key word for that too, believing in our dreams. And this can be a point of fruition for that, okay? So for the last 6 years, we've been building this dream, and now there's like something practical that can actually expand into our awareness that can actually help it happen, okay? And so that's what we're experiencing here in September, and the idea that we have an eclipse in Virgo just before this, like 5 days before this, in a sign about practicality, getting real, getting the boots on the ground kind of an energy. And with Venus now moving direct and heading back into Virgo by October, there's a real sense of this shift again into Virgo energy. And so we could really see, like I said, a practical expansion of our dreams having a way to manifest themselves in the world in ways that 5-6 years ago they just couldn't happen, okay? Because like I've said in other videos, things have shifted. The world has shifted, okay? And then on the same day that the exact opposition happens between Jupiter and Neptune, Mercury, which just entered Libra a couple days ago, and will be in Libra right up until Mars and Venus conjunct in early November, pretty much. So there's a real point there just after Halloween, where we have Mercury finally exiting Libra after 2 months being in Libra, starting here in late August, so all the way to late October, early November, and the final phase of this Venus-Mars conjunction, which again happens exact tomorrow, and then again exact in early November when Mercury exits Libra finally. So this time with Mercury in Libra, we're going to have a Mercury retrograde. So Mercury's going to go retrograde on the same day that Jupiter is exactly opposing Neptune. And so Mercury retrograde in Libra is a lot about back and forth discussion and going over, and kind of getting advice from others and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's a real sense of potentially someone coming into our lives that, in everyone's relative to every other person. So someone's coming into their lives too for something, etc. But we're all experiencing a sense of what we want as far as our dreams go and how we can make our dreams happen in life. We're meeting people that can actually help us. And it might happen in really strange ways. And it might be this real sense of like already knowing this person that's coming into your life and saying, where have you been all my life? People literally could be meeting their, if you want to use the word soulmate, during this next couple of months, because the energy's there for just kind of having a way for our dreams to come true through the influence of others. And it could be a real sense of trying to find our bearings from mid-September to early October. And when Mercury finally goes direct, it'll go direct pretty much the same day that Venus re-enters Virgo. So it's a real sense of, and Mars will already be in Virgo. Mars is going to enter Virgo in late September. So we're going to have Jupiter, Mars, and then Venus all in Virgo at the same time in early October, which is really it's like this total focus on really doing it, really seeing it, really feeling it with our hands, and doing and writing it with our fingers, and saying it with our voices. It's not dreamy. It's not like the opposite of Virgo is Pisces, which is dreamy and blissful and whatnot. This is really about bringing that into reality. And so it could really be a time here as we go through September of just meeting the right people, and it could be in the most random occurrences ever, like in the grocery store or at the bank or stopped at a red light or something. Like, you never know who you're going to meet and how. Maybe you're at a red light and then you see something on the side of a vehicle, a business or something, and it just strikes you and you look it up, and then you end up getting a job or something with that. These are the kind of things that can happen, and we could find ourselves right where we really wished we could be 5 or 6 years ago, in ways we have been working toward it because we've been envisioning it since then. And it's like that vision coming, or having an opportunity to come true here in September, which, it really feels like a real positive energy. If I just feel into it intuitively, it just feels like September, and then as we get into October, things really start to roll, and then by the early November, we're really shifted. And then in November, the moon's nodes, which represent kind of where things are headed, where our lives are headed, where we're coming from, is the south node of the moon. Where we're headed is the north node of the moon. The north node shifts from where it's been in Libra for the last year and a half into Virgo. It backs into Virgo. So we have another thing. So now there's a sense of us heading in the direction of practical results once we get into November, and that'll last for about a year and a half. And that'll be happening with Jupiter in Virgo till next summer. And Regulus obviously is going to be in Virgo for 2,000 years. So it's just everything wants to point to practically getting things on the ground, practically getting things together, and ways to do that, people to help with it. That is a big theme. It's like meeting the people to help with it in September, October. We're really running into the right people at the right time. So it all feels so extremely positive. And yet, there is what I mentioned here in the beginning of the video. And just like with Y2K, December 1st, 2012, end of the Mayan calendar, there's always someone looking out for a date to be aware of, right? And so now the big one, if you Google this, and I'm not buying into it or anything, I just want to bring it up in case you hear about it and just to give you a different perspective on it, is September 23rd, 2015. So coming up in a few weeks. So this is why I wanted to mention this, because it's happening right in the middle of this zone where Mercury's retrograde, everything's shifting into this Virgo energy and getting it done, and people's dreams coming true and this and that. And September 23rd, 2015 is Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement in the Jewish tradition. Just as a note, and a few days after that, there'll be a blood moon eclipse, okay? And it's the 4th in a row. So eclipses, these lunar eclipses we get every 6 months or so. So going back about 2 years, right? We're on the 4th one now. And it's the 4th and final blood moon. And all that means is it's a total lunar eclipse that gets fully red looking because of the dust on the earth and the reflection and whatnot. But, you know, like I said, this September 23rd date lands on Yom Kippur. It's all, you know, very biblical. And of course, if you're familiar with the Bible in any sense as far as like Book of Revelation and end of the world, and you know, it's all this stuff is supposed to happen during a blood moon, right? You know, the moon turns red and this and that. And like I said, with the manipulation of media that we can have a whole video, many videos on, which is what I talked about the polls earlier. Right now, there's something or someone or some group of someone that are definitely putting out there this idea that something big is going to happen in late September, around the 23rd, plus or minus, in conjunction with this blood moon in Aries. It's going to be in Aries, by the way. And to me, from an astrological perspective, with everything else going on that I talked about, as far as this positivity of meeting the right people and getting things really practical and done, that blood moon in Aries is about really gaining our own sense of self-worth in ourself, in that we have something to offer for the world. It's this real like awareness that we have the power ourselves, as Aries is about the individuality. And that is a scary thing for people in power, the idea of individuals with power. And like I said, Regulus in Virgo is about this shift in power structure. And lo and behold, we have all this shifting into Virgo here. Perhaps something is going to occur that's very positive for individuals and very negative for people in power that want to control individuals. That's how I look at what's happening, is that it's just a good thing. Just focus on the fact that we're becoming more sovereign. This is the term sovereign harmony that I use. And that this sovereignty is a good thing. And it's a bad thing for people that want to control you and make you, keep you off your balance, essentially. Because again, the core of health is balance. And so the core of this Regulus in Virgo is about balance leading to power. Balanced individuals are powerful individuals that create what they want, and they meet and they decide what they want regardless of what someone else tells them. And that's what it feels like we're shifting into, is a more sovereign, connected society. Sovereign seems like unconnected, but in reality, it allows you to connect because you're not off balance. When you're sovereignly connected and you are one with the all, and everyone else is one with the all, then you can connect without anxiety. Then you can connect without fear. That's the difference. So codependence is the opposite of that, where you connect out of fear. You don't want to be alone. I'm going to die if I don't have other people in my community, and that's not what sovereignty. Sovereign harmony, which is what I call it, is the idea of connecting with others because you are connected to the all, and so are they. And it's that total confidence, that total sense that you deserve everything, and that you create everything in your life. That responsibility, that accountability that comes with sovereignty is scary to some people that want someone to tell them what to do, that want authority to corral the masses and whatnot. And so when you look into this September 23rd, 2015, it's what's called a false flag event, and what people are calling this. And so that's when the people, if you're not familiar with that term, it's when the people in power are trying to make the public think something scary is happening, so they react to it, and so that they can go ahead and present us a way to solve the problem. It's and so it's just a system of creating the problem itself, allowing the reaction to yield the opportunity to provide a solution, and that solution, in many ways, can be detrimental to the individual. And so if you've heard of like New World Order and One World Government and that kind of thing, so a lot of people are speculating that there might be some kind of false flag event, something big that will convince people that it's worth it to just unite into one world government and give up your sovereignty and give up everything. And we'll take care of you, in other words. That's what I mean. There's a scary thing happening, but we have the solution. Just do this and we'll all be fine. So I don't know if I buy into it anyway in the first place. But this is what the speculation is, okay? That this kind of event could happen. And what does that mean? So there's different examples. So one example, which I love this one, and it's the idea about UFOs, right? What's going to unite the world like a UFO invasion, right? So if you could stage an invasion or the perception that we're being invaded, kind of like War of the Worlds, that kind of did that in a way. It was an accident, or at least we're told it was an accident. Maybe it was a test, who knows? But it was, we'll pretend it was an accident. And a lot of people freaked out when they were listening to War of the Worlds, and they thought we were getting invaded. So imagine if something like that, like if there was a way to, there was visible ways that people are actually seeing, flying ships in the sky and stuff like that. And that can, the technology we have today that's producible. That's producible to do that kind of event on a large scale. So that could be one. The idea that we're all getting invaded, so we better unite. Another could be that a meteor is going to hit, and we have to quickly, join together and make it easy. Say, oh, it missed us, and by the time it missed, I don't know. That's another example. Another one could be like, imminent nuclear war that's already, happened. Those kind of things. So there's a number of ways that, the masses, if they're off balance, can be in enough fear to just do whatever someone tells them to do in the moment, and that's a power grab, an opportunity for a power grab. But like I said, with the energy, the way it's going, we're moving into more sovereignty. We're moving into more practical ability to do what we want in the world as individuals. And the people that are in power are afraid of that, you see? And so that, in my opinion, if there is something planned for the late September, false flag wise, I think it's going to fail miserably. And it's going to be, my first notion is that nothing's going to happen, okay? I'm just saying. But if something did happen, I think it's going to fail miserably. And all it would do is make people wake up to the fact that the people in power need to be taken out of power and kind of start over with a more common sense approach to governance and leadership and whatnot, and that it could be a fast track shift into a more Regulus and Virgo kind of society, and part of that would be the common sense of allowing sovereign, nations and sovereign conditions, so they're not to have a one world government and not to people, allow sovereignty to reign essentially, and so that I think that would be the result, and part of the reason I would say that is, Mercury is going to be retrograde. During that time. It goes retrograde the 17th through about October 9th. So it's going to be about halfway through its retrograde, when this is supposed to happen. And because Mercury retrogrades, if you're not familiar, it has to do with things not going the way we planned, and, information glitches and such. So let's say, for example, the alien situation, a pretend alien invasion to get us scared, to get us to unite and to, whatever. Imagine the computer glitches that could happen with that. And we're seeing things not really the way they were supposed to be planned. So in other words, the great plan falls apart. It's almost like seeing the Wizard of Oz's legs underneath the curtain, right? It's this idea that, we didn't cover that one, or man, we didn't plan this well enough. So if it were to happen, again, I think nothing's gonna happen. I think we're just heading into, more individuality, sovereignty, and this real blessing. It feels like an energy of a blessing coming into the fall. And it could be a shift in global finances. And that could be a reason or an incentive to create a false flag. Because the powers that be that have clung to this financial system for the last many decades to a couple of centuries here know that it's about to die. They know that there's also other alternatives coming in, like BRICS, which is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And there's other financial kind of shifts going on as well. And so the traditional foundation of finance might be at its final point. And that could be an incentive for these people in power to say, screw it, we're going down anyway, let's give it a try. Because things are shifting too positively to support humans, to support individuals in a more prosperous kind of society where that have and have-nots collapses, and not in a communistic way where you even out everything, but the idea that the true value of resources and things starts to be clear and that false valuation of things like stocks and the stock market and whatnot kind of goes away. And so we just come to a more common sense form of finance and power. Again, Regulus and Virgo, okay? And so to me, I feel like it's just kind of an eminent shift in the global finances that is about to occur. Saturn's about to leave. This is a final thing astrologically. Saturn is about to leave Scorpio. It's going to be in the 29th degree of Scorpio starting tomorrow, August 31st, and it's got about 17 days left, 2.5 weeks in Scorpio at the 29th degree. So, and Scorpio has to do with global resources, global value systems. So like this, the stock market definitely falls within this idea of Scorpio. So it's Saturn there, just before it goes into Sagittarius on the 17th for 2 years, where we're walking our talk and we start to get real. Well, we're getting rid of that final junk here in the next couple of weeks. It's that real 29th degree, which is the critical degree, just like when Regulus was at 29 degrees of Leo in the late 30s to about 2012, when it was really intensified Leo paradigm for power structures. Think of this as a really intensified Saturn and Scorpio, which is about digging deep and getting all the gunk out of us. Okay, and on a global scale, this is about getting all the falseness out of the speculation market. Okay, so we might see some crashing going on. Every 7 years has been crashes. Every time Saturn is in a mutable sign, there tends to be crashes lately. So Saturn goes into Sagittarius, that's a mutable sign, in the fall. 7 falls ago, it was the fall of 2008, when Saturn entered, it must have entered Virgo at the time. Yeah, and so when Saturn entered Virgo, speaking of the devil, right, Virgo energy, there was that crash in 2008. When Saturn entered into Gemini, that was around 9/11 in the fall of 2001. So it's every 7 years when Saturn shifts into these mutable signs, there's crashes. So I imagine that this 29th degree of Saturn, the 29th degree of Scorpio, here the next couple of weeks is kind of like the final shitstorm of, oh shit, what's happening? We're about to collapse here financially. And the beauty of it is I think there's an answer to this collapse. It's already in the works, and it's imminent to fill in once it does collapse. So it's not like a lot of fear to go into. So I think if there is some kind of false flag event, it is associated with the powers that be trying to distract us enough to not embrace the blessings that are coming our way, the blessings that will be part of this global financial shift that's going to support us as sovereign individuals in the world for what we want to bring to the world, and not what we have to do to survive and to kind of slave away our lives to make it work. So I think there's very positive things happening, and the world is shifting into a more practical and it just feels calmer to me. This idea, what we've been in the last several decades and whatnot, a couple centuries, and we have all this technology now, all this automation, kind of technologies and ability to communicate across the entire globe in ways we didn't have in even the most recent time, even the last couple of decades, even 20 years ago, it wasn't as great as it is now. So I think, we're in a great space to really support a new paradigm of power, a new paradigm of money, a new paradigm of how we get about in the world and what we do to support ourselves, and doing that in joy rather than out of necessity and fear. And I think that's where we're headed as a society. And so I wouldn't worry about anything having to do at the end of this month, in my opinion. But if something does happen, just understand what I'm saying here and just focus on the reality. Focus on the reality that things are getting better. Things are getting better, despite what generations past might be saying, oh, things keep getting worse and the world keeps getting crazier and more intense. And it's like, no. We're past that point. Things are getting better. How does it get any better than this? That's the only question we should be asking. How does it get any better than this? And it will. And it's going to continue to do so. And if any kind of glitch happens here at the end of September, I think it's going to fail miserably. It's going to open up more eyes to this idea of, we're ready for a shift into something more beneficial to us and softer and more supportive than we've been in a while. So that's my wrap on it. So, please feel free to share this with anyone that, if you know someone who's kind of talking up the fear aspect of September 23rd, 2015, and the blood moon and all that. Share this with them. This is it's a perspective. It's not like, I don't know if this is right, but this is my perspective on it. It's how I see it and how I'm going to approach it. And if you like the approach, feel free to approach it like that too. But if you don't, then don't. But you know, if we're the ones that are creating, and this is the idea, as sovereign beings, we create our realities. And so what I'm saying, I'm suggesting to create a peaceful one. I'm going to. So that's my suggestion. Create a peaceful one. And if enough of us create a peaceful one, there won't be a way to disrupt us, because we'll be balanced, we'll be whole, we'll be healthy, we'll be in power. And that's the definition of power. When you're coming from a balanced space, and you cannot be moved, because I am creating peace right now, no matter what you're throwing at me, you have power. Because the only way you can be disempowered is someone makes you feel a certain way. They make you feel. No one can make you feel anything. You choose to feel. You choose, and so that's powerful. So that's what I'll leave you with. Stay in power. Stay grounded. The Virgo energy is coming. It's here, and it's just going to intensify. Be grounded. Get your hands in the dirt. Get something accomplished. Stop. Quit dreaming. The dream is great. The dream is beautiful. Trust me, I'm a Pisces, so I know about the dream. But put it in writing. Get it on paper. Get things done. Do something. Join groups. Get together. Meet the right people. Do something. Create something. And stay in peace. And you'll be powerful. You'll be a powerful creator. And you'll inspire others. So with that, I will leave you be. So until next time, I don't know when that will be. But I'll be back. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.